Give it one more minute, I think, here, just in case we got some stragglers. We had a lot of folks sign up, so wanted to make sure they get to catch all of it. I think we'll probably be recording too. Is that right, Deandra? Do we usually record these?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, cool. So make sure we do that as well. You just remember I brought the collared shirt out for you all, so doesn't happen often. And I forgot to put it on, of course, so why not? Great. Couple more. Perfect. All right. I think that's probably critical mass. So about to get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome. My name is Mitch Hanoush. I'm the Senior Policy Analyst for the Affordable Rental Housing Division at Oregon Housing Community Services. You are at the pre-application meeting for the Construction Loan Guarantee Program Manager request for applications that was published last week. And I'm joined by my colleague, Deandra Llewellyn, who I'll give a chance to introduce herself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deandra Llewellyn, and I am a procurement and contract specialist, and I am collaborating with Mitch on this request for applications.
Thanks, Deandra. Yeah, so just the two of us are working on this one, tag teaming it. So if you have questions kind of generally about process and things along those lines, we do encourage you to reach out to the OHCS contracts email address listed here. Deandra will go through that process next, but just throwing these email addresses up here. I'm always available if you want to talk through something, but we want to make sure that everyone is able to receive the responses to any questions collectively. And so it helps us keep organized and make sure we're going through the right kind of pathways if you can send it to that OHCS contracts if there are RFA specific questions. So yeah. And I think next I will hand it to Deandra to sort of talk through the how and the what.
Thank you, Mitch. All right, so if you are here, it's because you received notification that OHCS is issuing another request for applications, and this is for the Construction Loan Guarantee Program. And so if you would like to apply, we ask that you go to OregonBuys, OregonBuys.gov. That is our the state's e-procurement system, and that's where you're going to find all of our solicitation open solicitations for the agency. And so this particular solicitation is going to be in OregonBuys, where you'll be able to access all of the application materials in the system. And so I am listed as a single point of contact. And if you're familiar with the any of the solicitations that the agency puts out, we do typically identify a single point of contact for the solicitation, and it's usually an individual who is in the procurement unit. And so I would ask that you pay particular attention to the single point of contact section 1.5 of the RFA. It does outline some of the parameters for communication, some of the requirements for that communication. So you'll find my name, my contact information, and it's just important to to keep in mind that that you direct all of your communication related to any provision of the RFA only to the single point of contact, which is myself. Whether it's about the technical requirements of the RFA, grant requirements, the RFA process, or any other provisions. Essentially, failure to adhere to the instructions for communication is subject to rejection of your application. and that's in accordance with section 4.9 of the RFA. So if you have any questions on, what is grounds for potential rejection of your application, section 4.9 will give you some additional details on that. I'd also like to draw your attention to the RFA schedule. Today we're having the pre-application webinar, and the next event listed is questions and requests for clarification. And so if you do have any questions after this webinar and or need, have requests for clarification, we do ask that you submit all of those to the single point of contact, which is me, by June 25th at 4 p.m. I believe that's what it says. Let's see. Yes, so 4 p.m. and then all of the times listed are in Pacific Standard Time. So please get your information to me by that time. Questions that come in after this date and time will not be answered. Just allows us to kind of keep the process moving forward and make sure that we are moving things along in a timely fashion. Let's see. So, and you'll also be able to find the schedule in section 1.4 of the RFA. Submission requirements. There's going to be detailed submission requirements listed in section 3 of the RFA. It does outline the application requirements for this offering, gives you some details about what OHCS is requiring for this offering, as well as the solicitation process. That outlines some additional details for the requirements for submitting your questions, requests for clarification, and how to submit your application. And additionally, in section 4 and section 6, we'll provide you with additional information on how OHCS intends to make an award selection and what that process entails. So I've outlined the sections where you can find some of the most pertinent information in the request for applications. However, I do encourage you to read the entire solicitation document in case, that way it'll give you an opportunity to really look it over and ask some really great questions, before the deadline. As I mentioned before, once the deadline is passed, we're not able to accept any more questions or requests for clarification and get those answered. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. You can email me or call me, and my contact information is in the solicitation document, and I'll be more than happy to assist you in this process.
Thanks, Deanna. Perfect. I do want to quickly, if anybody has any questions around process right now that they want to flag, also, again, anything that comes up this meeting, encourage you to reach out to Deandra, and we will get that answered for you and for everyone. Give it a second, just in case anything burning. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to go through just generally, where this came from, what our expectations are, and sort of where we hope this will go, what we're going to be looking for, things along those lines. So initially, construction loan guarantee, everyone here, I think on this call knows what we're talking about. We're guaranteeing loans for the construction of affordable housing. We're doing this because there have been significant market challenges in recent years, particularly since COVID. Increased interest rates have made it challenging for folks to secure construction loans, and increased risk for lenders for projects has really led to sort of a tightening of their abilities to provide these loans that they maybe previously would have. So the construction loan guarantee works to hopefully help mitigate some of those risks that lenders are feeling and potentially open up more opportunities for loans that potentially they have would otherwise not be making, or provide loans that are able to be kind of on more preferential terms than they would otherwise be able to. We're also hoping this is a really great example of a public-private partnership, providing $20 million of state resources to be able to support what can be a significantly multiplied impact by a private lender who's able to take that guarantee and do a lot more than the state would be able to do alone with the resources available to them. We're also seeing in the market that this challenge exists beyond just, what OHCS is familiar with mostly, which is that deeper affordable housing up to middle income housing development. We've seen and heard from a lot of our partners and beyond that these challenges exist all the way up to market rate housing, frankly, but especially for that 120% and below, securing debt has been challenging and making these deals work has been challenging. So we're hoping this can be a product that helps that whole range of housing types, even beyond what OHCS typically finances with our capital resources. So just overview of where this came from. This was from House Bill 3395 in 2023, if you would like to see some of the context behind it. In that bill, there was some specific requirements and also a pretty nice latitude to be able to sort of allow folks to tell us how this program would be structured. But in general, there is a requirement that the applicant has to be a nonprofit community development financial institution, and the expectation is that CDFI will create a reserve fund that they will be able to guarantee against, and we will provide $20 million to pass through to that CDFI to be able to create that reserve fund. In the RFA, if you've been able to read it, you'll see that we're hoping the administrator of this program, the CDFI who wins the award, will be able to operate this program for 30 to 60 years. We're really hoping this becomes a really long-term partnership, a sustainable program for yourself and the state, and that this can be a really productive financial product for the state for a long time. And we want to make sure that, we're not in your way trying to, overly burden with reporting requirements and needs to renew and things along those lines. So trying to be generous with that upfront while understanding that there's some risk involved too with long term. So that'll be probably negotiated with you, but the expectation is at least that kind of 30-year period with the opportunity to go longer than that too. And then, just to emphasize, these guarantees have to be for construction loans. In the bill language, that's what it calls out. It also calls out that the loans, the guarantees may not exceed 5 years, the terms of the guarantee, and it has to be for rent restricted projects that can go up to 120% of area median income. So no naturally occurring affordable housing can be used for this. Obviously, it's construction loans, so we want to see this newly built housing really, tied to those rent restrictions after construction. Just to emphasize again the CDFI requirement, and there's been a couple programs recently that have really leaned into our partners in the CDFI space, which I think has been really exciting, aligning with kind of a private sector type of organization that I think aligns with agency values and also has a skill set that can really benefit the state as a whole. So looking for CDFI certified institutions to be able to really again, multiply the impact here while still being able to focus on kind of that community-centered piece of the program. That's really valuable to us as an agency and our board and Stability Council as well. So OHCS took the bill that we received and direction we received from that bill, and we created a framework that was developed sort of taking those basic parameters and enhancing them or improving them, I think, with some of our agency values and agency mission to kind of better align across those. Really the goal being wanting to allow folks to apply for this RFA with their program concept and leaving a lot of room open for you to be creative and think about how you could operate a program like this in a really productive and impactful way. Really just trying to put up those kind of guardrails around expectations that the state needs to be able to see to consider this program successful. And so we have different evaluation standards and different requirements, but most of those are exactly that, guardrails. We want to see, generally like within this box, how specifically far can you take this and make it really impactful. So things that we're looking for are really that feasibility, as in, are you actually able to operate this program? And also thinking about the types of projects that you select. Are you focused on the ability for these projects to be built, and how are you doing that? It's particularly thinking of kind of what your standards are going to be around what these loans look like. We're thinking about longevity. Can you make it to that 30 to 60 year period of running this program? Do you have a kind of plan for how this could be sustainable long term? And productivity, thinking generally about how is the state benefiting from this in terms of unit production, and trying to put targets on guaranteed dollars per unit type of calculation there. We also want to see how your organization is going to be able to prioritize certain types of projects within this guarantee program, specifically thinking of lower AMI projects, as well as small, rural, and culturally specific projects. Projects that have historically had challenges accessing debt. We want to see how you can distribute these resources in an equitable manner to make sure people that have been left out previously might be able to be brought into this program, and folks that might have more challenges securing debt in the private market without this guarantee in place can be the ones that are able to access it first and foremost, or at least more intentionally. We also want to see kind of options. And again, this is where we really want to see some creative thinking from you all, and thinking around what's possible. Options for how you can continue project development. So if the guarantee has to be utilized, that means something went wrong, right? And so thinking about how can we use that guarantee in a way that's productive and leads to the continued development of this project, or some other kind of positive outcome, as opposed to sort of the worst case scenario where the guarantee gets called and everybody's sort of left with nothing in place, even though the risk was mitigated by the guarantee, which is a positive outcome. We want to be able to see those units still be produced if at all possible. So yeah, your plan, I hope, can be able to highlight some creative ideas around ways you can potentially inject this funding earlier to be able to stabilize something, right size a loan, things along those lines. We also, just want to see, and we flagged OHCS resources here, supporting projects leveraging other OHCS resources. We want to see really any other resources, like how is this able to maximize impact by kind of leveraging other public, private, philanthropic resources beyond just the guarantee. And of course, thinking of OHCS resources, because that helps us kind of insert our standards into the project development, and better track with kind of the long-term success of how that project will eventually do. So with that as a framework, if you've looked through the RFA, you can see, I think, a lot of that reflected in the evaluation criteria and the scope of work expectations. Evaluation criteria here have been kind of broken into 4 major buckets. These were approved by Housing Stability Council and are reflected in the RFA. They are governance structure, equity, diversity, and inclusion, prioritization, and budget. And I'll go through each of those kind of categories next, but definitely encourage you to ask questions if you have any specific ones. I think we did our best to make these questions pretty straightforward, I think, and I think self-explanatory, really trying to hear from you what you can do in all these instances, and we'll evaluate against sort of the success of your plan in answering those questions and responding in the way that kind of proves to us that your organization has thought about these things and is planning for these things, and will develop a program that reflects those values. So the first set of questions around governance structure are looking at, generally, what's your capacity? Who do you have that can work on this? Do you have the ability to take this on? Is there an existing program that you have in place that this is really not going to take extra staff time necessarily? Or is this something you're planning for hiring on? We just sort of trying to get a read on how you're thinking about this and how it's going to be managed at your organization. We also want to see your experience with this type of program or other types of guarantee products, and generally kind of with the alignment with your plan, your experience working with these types of loans in general, and the types of stakeholders that are going to be involved here. We also just want to see some of kind of your thoughts around internal controls and accountability mechanism that kind of reflect the fiscal responsibility of how you're going to operate this fund, and generally just want to see some of your CDFI's practices and policies around this type of product, and whether there's anything that's going to look a little different with this as a guarantee fund. And then this is where we are asking about that kind of sustainability long-term, what your plan is for making sure this can be a long-term program for the state and support folks really in perpetuity. We want to see how you plan for this to be an evergreen resource for the state, or if it can't be, what your thoughts are around ways that it could be sustainable beyond the initial investment that's happening here. So again, encourage creativity, but are looking for ways that this fund can be self-sustaining long-term. The next category is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And again, I think this is relatively self-explanatory. We really want to see, as I mentioned earlier, how you're targeting resources to those folks who have been left out of this process before and are having maybe more challenges securing loans, maybe because of discriminatory lending practices in the past that have led to kind of different market conditions in those communities, and thus creating greater risk in those communities by sort of the metrics that are being used by your organization. So thinking about how those exist, those disparities, and that potential impact of historic discriminatory practices, and then how this program can help intentionally confront that and break it down. I think we want to see generally just what your use of an equity lens in your program plan is, how you're thinking about these types of things, and then also really intentionally what your method's going to be for supporting those types of organizations that you've identified as sort of having more challenges accessing construction loans generally, and also just having affordable housing development generally as well. The prioritization piece is really the meat, I think, of the RFA responses and where the evaluation criteria is weighted most heavily. We have the most points possible in this category because we really want to see how this program is going to help support the projects that are going to come as a result of it. So seeing how you're meeting the state goals around not just priority populations, as mentioned in the DEI tab, or the section, but also around unit production, how you're aligning with governor's housing goals and effectively kind of expanding housing production through this guarantee products, if possible, and really thinking about what the impact's going to be of this program once you stand it up. So we're asking about what your efficiency expectations are, the amount of units per dollar guaranteed type of question and projection. There's no right or wrong answer here too. We want to see obviously greater efficiency, but we also want you to be realistic around kind of what the expectation should be around here. I think there's wanting to really connect it to how the program is going to work is more important to us than as low as humanly possible. This is where that plan for potentially salvaging projects that are struggling, that the loan needs or the guarantee is being called, how that can potentially lead to a continuation of that project's development, if possible, or recommended by kind of an analysis of what's going on specific to the project. Obviously, some projects maybe should not be continued to be built, and it's better to just have the guarantee called. But I think in most cases, we want to see those units produced based on our expectations to the program. We also, again, and this is where we're asking for kind of how you're going to prioritize guarantees to potentially lower AMI projects. The requirement is that it's 120% or below, and we absolutely think that a lot of those middle income projects are going to be well served by this. But we also want to see how potentially this could go to those steeper subsidy projects that are going to that struggle to have an ongoing relationship with banks sometimes, and how lenders can kind of really intentionally reach out to folks that are targeting this kind of more challenging market. And lastly, really thinking mostly about your budget, but thinking mostly about your admin costs. And similar to what I just said in the last slide, the lower is not necessarily the best in this case. It's a reasonableness and appropriateness. So if your scope of proposed activities is really ambitious and it's going to require more admin costs to successfully pull off, that's fine. We want to see that just sort of justified and backed by what that actual scope of work is. If you're able to sort of plug this into existing programs that you have, and it's not going to take a lot of admin costs, and so you don't have much, that's great too. I think, yeah, just want to emphasize that. We don't want to have you not be able to successfully implement and administer this program because you're trying to really lower this piece. We just want to make sure you're thinking about it and that it's really, yeah, reasonable and appropriate for the scope of the program that you're proposing. Okay, and Deandra already covered this, which is great, but just hammering it again. These are the key kind of dates. Their deadline for questions is June 25th. So really encourage you, it's a week from today, really encourage you to take some time with the RFA itself, look through it, especially the pieces on responses that you're going to need to provide us, and send some questions our way if you have them, and we'll get responses back to you as soon as we can. Applications are then due July 11th, and we hope to award them in a few weeks after that. I think we said approximate because we don't know exactly how many applications are going to come in. So if we have a ton of applicants, which would be great, it might take us a little longer to score them and evaluate them, but we are hoping that that is a reasonable timeline to issue that intent to award. So with that said, that's sort of the overview there. Very much thank you all for coming, and encourage any questions that you have right now that are burning. Also encourage you again to like sit with the document. It's pretty, I think it's pretty good, streamlined, efficient. We did our best to make it pretty easy to understand and go through. So hopefully you'll be able to kind of do that if you haven't already, and send us questions that you have, and we'll respond as we have answers. So that's all I've got. We have a whole half hour for people to stick around and ask questions if they have them. Otherwise, you can, head out, and we look forward to hearing your responses. If you do have questions, you can toss them in the chat, or you could raise your hand and ask them. Otherwise, I'll stick around for a bit in case folks want to, but no pressure, obviously. Send them in writing afterwards too. Thanks. Also, if anyone has any questions about the NBA finals, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I'm up originally from Boston and having a good morning for sure.
What's the NBA?
Thank you for your question, Trinity. I'd love to respond to that. Except I'm gonna mute you because Thanks, Ann. Appreciate you coming. Thanks, Meredith. Bye, Trinity. Nathan, it looks like you're the only one left, so gonna just flag that. And if you have any questions, would love to chat. Otherwise, I might just close this thing down.
Yeah, go ahead and close it out, man. I don't have any questions.
Okay, great.
All the information that you've gotten, that you've given, will you be sending a recap to everyone's email?
Yeah, I think we're gonna post the recording online, and yeah, we'll send out the link to that to everyone who registered today. And yeah, I'll attach the PowerPoint as well that we used.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I do have a question. So with the
Yeah.
affordable housing, do they have any special funding for new builders?
So for this program, not, so I guess the answer is we'll see, unfortunately. So because this is being administered by a third party, we're really hoping that the CDFIs can create a program structure that does things exactly like that, like can kind of go in and prioritize new builders for this type of funding guarantee to be able to secure those loans when otherwise they might struggle. I think, thinking about folks that are otherwise going to have trouble accessing that debt. It's a lot of folks that don't have the portfolio yet, or yeah, have experienced kind of historic discrimination. So I think it's sort of either in rural areas or communities of color, or places like that, are where we really want to see these guarantees targeted to the people that are going to benefit the most from it. And I think new folks are going to the industry are going to really benefit from something like this too, because they're often seen as a riskier loan. So hopefully this can help open some of that up.
Well, that's what my plan entails. It's a 40 unit, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, and it's directly into the areas of places where it's more urban.
Yeah.
May not be as rural, but also isn't as inner city as well, to where it's meets the cost guidelines.
Yeah.
So we want to target those areas in Portland that are, I hate to say it, but less unfortunate.
Yeah.
So there are programs there. Are you able to email me those type of programs, that anything that can potentially help me get on the ball? Right now, I'm at the step one, really, because I've got a business plan for the 40 units.
Yeah.
But I still need to have blueprints. I still need to get a builder, which I'm thinking about partnering with someone that the state may recommend.
Yeah. Let me put for you, Nathan, we recently added, which is really exciting, like a technical advisor group with our section, and it's affordable rental housing. So we have a bunch of different programs that's specifically for funding affordable housing developments in all areas of the state. And we just launched a new process, and they'll hopefully be able to really direct you to where those resources are going to fit your project best, and potentially connect you with some consultants that do this type of work all the time, or maybe other developers and stuff like that. So let me drop that in the chat real quick, and then you feel free to reach out to me too after the fact if you've got questions, and I can either put you on to the right person, or
My issue has been getting a hold of someone on the phone. That's what my
Yeah.
issue's been.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that. And these folks are doing, I think, a pretty good job of responding. But if you're not hearing back from them, shoot me an email and I'll try to connect you with one of our program managers or some other resources that make sense.
Okay, and that email I can respond to where I'm getting the emails for the actual group sessions, these meetings, correct?
Uh, Send
Okay,
it to, yeah, so
I can't.
that's my email, and then
Yeah,
the technical advisors one is the one to go to. I think if you reply to like the general one, that'll send you to like our public affairs division, which I think is a little bit different than our specific one in rental housing.
okay, perfect. Now, is there any? Is there any? Do you know if there's any specific or special programs for um, builders that may be African American descent?
Not in Oregon at the moment. I know there have been consideration of like a Black Developers Fund. There's one in Massachusetts that we've been talking to a lot recently about sort of how they've structured that, ways to kind of implement. And we've been, talking to the governor's office and legislators around like that as a potential future state. So I think there might be some momentum on that in this next legislative session. So definitely encourage you to like reach out to your local state senator or rep, because I think that's going to be coming up this session. And I think it's
Yeah,
if it's something you want to see happen, I think it could be in the near term. I
I
think they're
honestly,
talking about that working through Business Oregon as more of like kind of that business development as opposed to
okay.
us, but that's obviously early days, so we'll see if anything happens behind that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, man. The only reason I've asked is because doing this research in with these 40 affordable units, I'm not looking to just do them in one state. So
Yeah,
I'm gathering all the information because there's multiple states that need these units. There's
yeah,
multiple low income people that actually would be, grateful to have these.
totally.
But what I'm
Yeah,
what I'm realizing through my search is that there's not, from state to state, there's no program specifically to fund African American developers. There's and to be truthful with it, from what I understand in my research, there's not a lot of African American developers from state to state.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is new for a lot of us.
yeah.
So I was just curious to know if there was, anything that Portland may have offered. But I truly appreciate your time and thanks for your information. I will be reaching back out to you. Like I said, I haven't had any luck getting anyone on the phone, but
Yeah.
I do have a very solid business plan from A to Z that spells everything out. It's just now putting the pieces together and, going forward in that manner.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks for coming, man. And yeah, I appreciate it.
You're
And
welcome.
I think we can yeah, let's keep talking for sure.
For sure. All right. I appreciate it. Have a good day, man.
You too. Um, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, Deandra, and then I think, is this recording posted on the procurement page, or do we send it to public affairs? Do you know? I think I'll get it in my email after or something. Thanks for bearing with us too. That was not specifically related to construction guarantee, obviously. But
So that's okay. I wanted to stick around just in case there were any questions for me. So I will